Okay, super quick video about making ruled surfaces in Rhino. A ruled surface is just a surface with single curvature or simple curvature, so a surface that only ever curves in one direction. Um, that means you can always get that if you sweep a straight profile, just like a straight line. To get them interesting, we'll do a sweep 2. So I'm going to start by defining a couple of curves that will be the shapes for our sweep, the rails for the sweep. Say it's them. Just separate them a little in 3D. And then we're just going to snap a nice simple straight line between the two. It's going to be our profile. So we're on a sweep 2. Oh, before we do that, we're going to put record history on, which is going to become relevant in a second here. So we're on a sweep 2. Our first rail, one of the rails, second rail, other rail. Cross section is just the straight line we just drew. And I'm just going to go ahead and sweep that. As you can see, we've got this nice, oh, my options came in on the other monitor. So we can, it should be fine if we rebuild it. That shouldn't matter too much. But also, there's not really any reason to, because it's quite simple already, so we'll just leave it. Let's make this easier to see. So this is a ruled surface. This is a surface of only ever single curvature that still has an interesting degree of complexity because the single curvature functionally occurs on a curved line if you look at this thing flat. So it occurs on sort of different pitches as it moves along the length of the surface. The reason we recorded history on this, and this is a great trick in general for making forms, is that if we grab our curves, we can put control points on them, and with history recorded, the surface will update to reflect the movements of the curves that have defined it. So it makes it just a little bit parametric, which can be really nice with things like this, where it's like you want to kind of, massage. It's like maybe this thing needs to do a particular thing, perform in a certain way, so you can kind of, oh, does it need to be wigglier? Let's really wiggle it up, or whatever, right? You can kind of massage it until it's the shape you need. If you were going to build something like this in a building, typically you would have this be some number of pieces of metal or whatever, some material that can be bent. It gets cut flat and then sort of mounted to a supporting structure underneath. So the shape for that metal we can find just doing an unroll surf on this, metal or whatever, relevant material. We don't want to explode it, although it may not matter. In general, exploding is an action of last resort. And this would actually probably be fine if we exploded it. But we can unroll it, and this thing here is the shape that if you were to cut this out of a metal, I don't know why I keep saying metal, a material you could bend, you could then bend it into this shape. So this is just the cut file for the thing. And that is also true on the scale of a building if this is galvanized steel or whatever. To do it though, to ensure you get this shape and also to support the thing, typically you'd want some sort of bracing system on the back. You could set that up with sort of carefully placed posts or whatever. Let's say that this is the building that underlies this thing. Set it up with carefully placed posts or whatever, but an easier way to do it is going to be to make sort of a truss assembly, particularly for like a model. If you're building a model of this thing, this will work really well. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our surface and our building, and we need to get some curves out of this first. So we're going to throw a few cut planes through it. So we can go with one cut plane, let's say, like near the top of the thing, and one near the bottom of the thing. Not super important where they are. We're going to run an intersect 2 sets on it. So our second set of objects are our ruled surface and our building. This did not do what I had hoped it would. That's strange. Okay, let's try that again. First set of objects are our cutting planes. Second set of objects are the surface and the building. This time it worked. I must have misclicked something. Cut planes can go away for now. We don't really need those. We don't need our building at the moment. We just need the curves and honestly, we don't even need our surf anymore. That can get hidden as well. I'm just going to grab it in this way to catch the curves that are at the top and bottom. So we're just going to make a little sort of pseudo truss thing that will work well on like a intermediate scale model. Probably like, you probably wouldn't want to do it this way on anything finer than 1 to 100, and you probably wouldn't want to do it this way on anything coarser than 1 to 200. So we got our perp snap on. We've created a line off the end of this curve. That's where the truss is going to go. And we're just going to snap that perpendicular to the curve that is that's the edge of the building. Do that the same way on the other end. Perp snap, all good. We're going to repeat that process on the bottom. I'm going to do it in 3D. You could probably also figure out a way to do it with project, but I think it's often easier to just scoot over to 3D for something simple like that. We're then going to let's grab these new curves we just made, and we're going to run a trim command to just throw out the part of the curve of the building that we don't need. It's not relevant for what we're doing. Then these sets of curves we've made can get joined. We'll do that with both of them. And so these are going to be our profiles for our truss system, or pseudo truss. It's not going to be, it'll be trussy. It won't be space framey, I guess. So we'll go plan our surf on both of these because we're going to need surfaces out of them eventually. I'm going to set these up side by side. I don't need those curves anymore, I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong, but they're easy to get back. So here's our two trusses. Everything's all good. We need first some like lines that fall through these. Because I happen to use a building that is circular, I will make these sort of radial lines from the center of what would be the center, like the center of the circle, the center of the building. So center snap, grab that, start at one end. We can do that for both of them. If your building wasn't circular, maybe this would want to be not radial, probably. Also, so I didn't make them long enough. I could have drawn it longer, probably should have. I'll just do a quick scale 1D along the length of the thing, because we want it to be well clear of the bottom of the this plane we've made, this surface. So we've got these. We'll do a little polar array to distribute those along the surface. So the object is the curve, center is the end of the object. Let's say 8 maybe. Seems like it might be an okay number. Our angle of first reference will be our first curve. Our angle of second reference will be the end of the surface, and we'll repeat that for the other one. And so this, we've now got some lines on these surfaces, and we're going to spread these out a little too close, I think. So it's like half of our, I guess this is all of our truss except a diagonal member. So what we're going to do, we're actually just going to go ahead and quickly draw in some diagonals. This is 100% a thing you could deploy a Grasshopper script onto quite easily to make a support for a ruled surface like this. It would just be a matter of feeding the script the edge of your building. That's a little gross. We'll do it up here. The edge of your building and the corresponding curve on the surface of your ruled surface as sort of the boundaries for a truss script, particularly if you had a truss script that just ran on dividing one or more curves. Should be fine. But we can also do it relatively easily by hand, particularly because these are not super large and we don't have a ton of them. This could get laborious relatively quickly, I think. I did need that other curve. What was I thinking? Okay. So we're gonna take all of our curves. So I'm just gonna, we could do a cell curve because I got this other one that I'm gonna need to fix in a second here. I'm just gonna drag a selection over it and get in here. We'll unselect our surface. All of our curves. I'm gonna pipe our curves. Pipe is a really nice way to define regular sort of shapes, like to offset a line on both sides in three-dimensional space. It's sort of the pipes and spheres are great for that sort of thing. Well, I didn't mean to right-click, but that's not far off. No, I think that's maybe a little too thick, so we'll just undo that. Run it again. Let's put our pipe. Let's try 0.5 for a pipe. Yeah, that's probably more like what we want. So once we've done that, we don't need these curves anymore. The responsible thing to do is to move the curves onto their own layer. That is your backup for curves. I am going to be irresponsible. So now we should be able to take our surface and actually we'll do this the other way. We'll grab everything but the surface. So again, I'm just going to select the surface and then select everything, unselect the surface. I'm going to do a trim. If I've done this correctly, we should be able to just go boop, 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 and just work our way through, deleting out the space that the pipes don't cover. Oops, wrong button. Run that, and then we just delete our pipes. And so this is like a little truss type thing, right? It's not super fancy, but this will make a suitable sort of base thing. Laser cut this. You might want to do something like put some little tabs on it. There are definitely scripts that will put tabs on things. I never am on the ball enough to use them, so I typically wind up living in the world of drawing drawing tabs onto laser cut things. And then the typical workflow that's really nice is you take something like this and you go boundary, or what is it? Curve. What is the command I'm thinking of? Dupe border. There we go. You dupe the border of it. Don't really need the surface because you can't laser cut out of a surface. And then you take this curve and you do something like grab your tabs, run a quick trim, boop, boop, and so on. You need more tabs than this, obviously, and then you could go ahead and laser cut this thing. You might put in, so we grab, for laser cutting this, grab this, we'll move it over to layer 01 is currently red, so we just change this to that. And it's a little hokey, but it's a nice way to get things into Illustrator with the correct color already set. So it can just save you a minute. Also makes it easier, I think, to look at when you know what color the thing's going to be. So we could, just put a little black score line, fold the tabs over, and then we would cut our ruled surf. Oh, I think I deleted the one I unrolled. Cut this, and then this would define half of the shape of that thing. So we'll just do the other side again here, just to make sure that it's all good. So we got the one side. Alright, we should go back a little bit further. There we go. One side's all happy. So we'll make the bottom of the thing happy. So bottom. Well, this is the top. We'll make it happy as well. So we're gonna grab everything, our whole thing. Oh, right. The reason I didn't do this at the same time as the other one. We're gonna grab our surface in here, and we're gonna run a dupe border on it because we need that edge curve to give our truss that thickness right there. So let's get a little fancier with this time. We're going to grab everything. We're going to unselect our radial curves, and we're going to unselect our surface. So we've just got our diagonal curves, and oh, you know what? Actually, my mistake. We'll grab everything, and we'll unselect our surface and our boundary curve. We're going to pipe these, but let's pipe these at 0.25 because they occur with their full width of the pipe present in the truss, whereas the edge occurs with only half the width of the pipe. So we'll do these at 0.25, a little skinnier. We'll grab our boundary curve. We'll run a pipe again at 0.5. And now the portion of this that falls on the surface should have the same width afterwards. So we can grab everything. We'll ditch our surface. And we can run another trim command. So let's make this shaded. And we'll just start trimming out the gaps between the trusses that we don't need. This might be a little skinny. That looks a little thin to me, but do that. Make this not shaded because I find it very hard to look at in views that are not perspective. And we'll delete out our pipes. So now we've got the top and bottom of this thing. looks something like that. So if we, let's grab our ruled surface. If I was being responsible, I would have built this in place, but it's a little harder to look at. So that goes in there somehow. Yeah, that's okay. This just means that having moved it, it can no longer understand the history that we defined for it. There are serious limits to Rhino's ability to sort of do pseudo-parametric stuff like this, but that's fine. So anyways, we can kill that. Scooch this around. This could, of course, be sort of set up precisely to support this, and ideally, if you wanted these objects in your model, you would not move them while you built them, you would build them where they exist. So it's a very simple little truss sort of type thing that you can use to support a simple ruled surface in Rhino. And it's nice because you can laser cut it. If you wanted to go classier with this, it would probably like have, you know, sort of a space frame element or something, or have these. You wouldn't necessarily need the diagonal. It just increases the stability of the thing. This pretty quickly becomes a thing I think that is probably best done in Grasshopper. But if you just want something that'll stand up to be a nice little 1 to 100, 1 to 200 model, or just a quick thing that's gonna, you know, you just want it to be apparent that there's something back here, this will totally do the job and is not particularly painful to do. So I hope that is helpful.